2001, 4 airplanes were taken over by an Islamic extremist group called Al Qaeda. The individuals involved carried out attacks against targets in the United States. The most known part of 9/11 was the destruction of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. Just outside of Washington, D.C., the Pentagon was damaged. The final act of destruction occurred in a field in Pennsylvania. The flight had been delayed enough to where the news of the other attack spread, and a group of passengers and flight attendants decided to intervene and take over the plane and crashing it before it could reach its intended target. This act left 3,000 without their lives and 10,000 others wounded. An invisible damage from the attack that day resulted in many years of discrimination, misunderstanding, and a fear of the Muslim population and their faith. This is now spreading into Americans' educational system at all levels. It is affecting the way teachers are teaching and students are learning. In particular, it is affecting the way Muslim individuals are being taught and how they are learning. Let's begin with some facts and statistics. Muslim Americans can roughly be divided into several groups: immigrants who come from Asia, Africa, Iran, and the Middle East, African Americans, and converts from other groups found in the U.S. More recently, Muslims have immigrated from Western Asia, more specifically Iran, Pakistan, and India. Muslims believe in Islam, which is their faith. A brief overview of their faith is that it is monotheistic, meaning they believe in one God, which is the same God as Christians and Jews. The difference is they regard Jesus as a prophet of God, similar to Muhammad, not the Son of God. Muhammad is also extremely important to the Islamic faith. They study the Hadith, which is a collection of sayings and teachings from the Prophet Muhammad. They also have 5 pillars of faith, which are the foundation of what they believe: worshipping Allah, praying 5 times a day, fasting during Ramadan, contributing to the poor, and lastly, Muslims must make a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in their life. And lastly, the Quran is a holy text that they believe in, similar to the Bible. Furthermore, a study done by Pew Research estimated that there are about 3.45 million Muslims in the U.S. In 2017, Muslims made up 1.1% of the population. Researchers have also found that except for a small group of the Muslim community that are wealthy, Muslims actually remain the poorest, most marginalized, and uneducated population in the world. Yet there's little to no research about Muslim Americans in general, especially pertaining to education. Being a first-generation minority, I have had my own experiences with oppression within the school system. Experiences of teachers being biased and treating each student differently, to programs and activities being segregated and secluded, even looking around my college and not seeing anyone who looked like me. I wanted to find the truth about the experience of Muslim Americans within the educational system in America. On my journey to find answers, I decided to turn to research. The research that was analyzed was diverse to show all sides of the Muslim community. I looked at the research that focused on Muslim women who veil, men, international students, children, and parents. I also looked at research that examined Muslims within the primary education system as well as the higher education system. Articles about teachers and peers' attitudes and beliefs about Muslims were also analyzed. What was found from these studies is extremely germane and urgent information. It was found that confusion and misunderstanding are extremely prevalent within the educational system towards Muslims. Administration and faculty lack the appropriate knowledge about the diversity of their students, that it is now difficult for Muslim students to have a conversation so they can communicate their ideas and further their knowledge. Students are also not receiving a balance of information within the school's curriculum about the diversity of the people in the world or about their own realities. Non-Muslim students now tend to devalue Muslim students in social contexts, which in turn supports the finding that Muslims tend to shy away from relationships of any kind with non-Muslims because they felt they will not be understood. One study found that Muslim children and parents did not expect Americans to understand the difference between Islam as a practice and Muslim people as a whole. Muslims from many different walks of life feel as though the difference between Muslims and Americans exists, but Americans choose to ignore it, and Muslims feel the need to constantly defend it. The schools and communities are not making much of an effort to implement knowledge about the Muslim community as well as form relationships between the two. This class sparked an urge to search for the truth. Diving into everything taught me more about the altruistic experiences of Muslim Americans than I have learned from society or my own education. I learned that Muslim Americans are highly misunderstood and misrepresented within the educational system and within society. I also learned that there are not many people talking about it or doing anything to help. Through the search, a study presented itself with a finding that stated that classroom atmosphere is highly dependent upon the attitude of teachers and students. If the classroom environment is not an acceptable place for a child to learn, then their success is hindered within the educational system. Researchers have also found that the continual friction between society and the Muslim community is tremendously affecting the population as a whole. The solution lies within having conversations about what is happening to those around us and how they're being oppressed, and then taking this knowledge to change the educational system to be an even playing ground for all groups of people. Let's not be a part of the bystander effect, which can be defined as one being less likely to help someone in need if others are present. Let's not wait around for others to change or implement change. How about